This technical product for senior engineers was really clear about what they do, and it was also even more apparent how many superfans they actually had. But were they fully showing all of their biggest advantages on their homepage? Once we talked through the product, a couple of things surfaced really quickly. One, the POV that sets their product apart wasn't making it into their hair section. And two, the social proof that matters most to senior engineers was sitting too far down on the page. So in this clarity jam, we tighten the message, surface the strongest signals earlier, and show how to frame the story in a way that matches how people actually adopt their product bottom up. Let's get into it.
I'm Samuel. I am the creator of the Pydantic library, and now I run Pydantic the company. We have so we have the Pydantic stack, which is a bunch of things we do. So we have the original Pydantic validation library, we have Pydantic AI, our agent framework, and then we have Pydantic Logfire, which is the commercial bit of what we do, which we're speaking about today.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about kind of what like Logfire actually does and kind of the main problem that it solves.
Yeah, so Logfire is a little bit unusual in that we are a full stack observability platform with first class support for AI. So in the rest of the ecosystem, you have the new AI observability platforms, which are just about observing effectively your calls to LLMs and doing evals. And then on the other hand, you have the legacy observability platforms, the big incumbents who do more like engineering observability. And we're different in that we provide you with one pane of glass to understand your application, which does both the AI stuff and the general stuff. And we hope we can combine them together in a like easier to use platform than either of the other like groups of platforms.
Got it. So you're basically combining two use cases that are already proven into one kind of tool that is easier for developers and software engineers to use.
I would argue that AI observability, it's a pretty new thing. It's only been around for a couple of years. I think it will go away. I am pretty confident that long term we're going to have observability, which is going to have to include AI functionality because everything is going to include AI. So just as no one talks about cloud observability or web observability today, so in 5 years' time, people won't talk about AI observability. It will be a required feature of your observability platform.
Yeah, this could be a bad analogy or a bad metaphor, but it's like to your point of view, are you kind of thinking that AI observability becomes observability in the same way that like it's now just expected that any knowledge worker knows how to use Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, well, I was probably not in the workplace when that transition was happening in the mid 90s when people were like, no, I needed the Excel person to do that. I think we now expect everyone to be able to do it, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, probably a bad analogy, but it's kind of similar to that, and that's almost could feel like a very sticky point of view. Have you kind of leaned into that perspective throughout kind of anything that you're kind of saying in sales and marketing, where it is like, hey, observability, AI observability is a thing right now, but eventually we're kind of building out the tool that is going to be all encompassing.
We're moving, we actually haven't changed this website yet, but we've changed a lot of our other marketing material to our like new tagline is AI is still just engineering. And
Mhm.
that points both at this particular point about Logfire, but about our whole ethos as a company that fundamentally AI, although incredibly powerful and changing the world, it doesn't remove the engineering challenges that existed before. If anything, accentuates them. It's just that it also has this amazing impact that means we kind of got to go and use it.
Yeah, that's super sticky, and what I almost kind of refer to across a lot of these jams now called like a messaging wedge, aka that thing that kind of makes your tool or your platform, the specific thing, different than everyone else, and something that definitely I would encourage you to lean into a lot more. With that in mind, I know you have pretty big open source component, which is a little bit unique for a lot of the charity jams I've done, and excited to dive into a little bit more. So that kind of my kind of question there is your kind of product adoption mostly bottom up coming in through oftentimes junior or mid-level engineers, or kind of walk me through exactly how people discover your product?
Yes, it's coming from engineers. So people will use the Pydantic validation library. They will move from there to using Pydantic AI, our agent framework, as they adopt AI. Once you're using AI, you discover these things are stochastic, slow, and expensive, and you need an observability platform to understand how they're behaving. And then you move on to Logfire. What I wouldn't say is they're not necessarily junior and they're not necessarily in small companies. That is like senior experienced engineers within large financial services institutions who are like, we need this thing because we trust Pydantic. we know that their agent framework is superior to the alternatives. And so, yes, they're ICs, but they're very senior very often, the people who we talk to, and they may not have the permission to go ahead with, let's say, an enterprise contract, but they do have the right to veto it. And they just need to get some other senior engineers to sign off on it quite often.
Got it. That makes a ton of sense. With that in mind, do we want to go ahead and just kind of walk through that page? And if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, of course. So this is the Logfire page of our website. I will start off by saying this site is a little bit unloved. It's been tweaked from when we first launched, but like this graphic here, which animates when you first load the page, has not had the work it needs. We need to update this website a lot, but I'm very happy to talk through what I think we're doing well and badly. I think perhaps credit to us, this view of kind of like stylized view of Logfire is actually not that far away from what you would see today. It's still semantically similar to the platform. I think we could probably do more compelling. One of the things we're going to change is we have what we call public traces, which is where you can basically share some data from Logfire publicly, and we're going to actually use them in an iframe here on the site, so that instead of seeing a like stylized kind of graphic of what Logfire might look like, you literally see Logfire and you can go and click and open spans and view the details. Coming down, previously when we first had this built by the website builders, they had this like problem statement where they like did a slightly vague version of describing what the problem was. We never thought that was very good, and so we've used this space here to talk about the fact that it's your whole application, not just AI or not just LLM calls. The other thing to call out here is this pyramid, Penrose, Kite and Dart, which makes up our logo. Those same people who built the website initially pushed us to have a completely different logo for Logfire. Mm-hmm. It took us a long time, embarrassingly long, bluntly, to realize that was a profound mistake. And the like developer knowledge and appreciation for Pydantic is the most valuable thing we have. And so we use the same logo. We sometimes have it in a different color, but we use the same logo across the whole site and across everything we do. We use it for Pydantic validation, for Pydantic AI, and for Pydantic Logfire, and for other things we're going to launch. And trying to split up those logos and have different things was a mistake. But yeah, so sticking to that logo. Again, another graphic, again, built by that team. I mean, you can see here, sure, we have an OpenAI example here, but we should definitely be talking about Pydantic AI, so this hasn't been updated. Another mistake that was made when we built this site, because the team building the website were not used to building for developers, all of the code snippets that they put in are like SVGs, and developers hate this, that you can't go copy this code and try and run it. And so I think further on down the site, we do have some examples where you can copy paste the code, but I think that's really important, that if you're going to have code on your website, it's got to go and be usable. But yeah, full SQL is one of the big features of our platform. I don't think we've done the best job ever of describing how valuable that can be in this component, but I think it's an important thing to have. I think we should do a better job fundamentally of like explaining why that's really powerful. But we have this. Moving on down, we talk about some of the other value propositions. So from local to prod. So the idea that you can use Logfire from your first day you're developing your app through into production is really important for us. Built on open standards, SQL and open telemetry, and usable really quickly. So OpenTelemetry is an open standard for doing observability. It's really great in principle, but it's often hard to use in practice. We have neat SDKs for Python, TypeScript, and Rust, which make it much easier to use. And that's what we demonstrate with this code. And then we use this section here to describe, we use code to illustrate that there are many different libraries in Python that we can instrument. We should definitely talk about other languages on this site. We're not at the moment. We've got some comments from people being complimentary about it. Testimonials, these are out of date. We're working now to do proper case studies where we have big, like renowned institutions explaining how they use our stack, because I think that will be more useful than like X says Y about what people have said about what we're building. I think we could do better on call to action across the site. Okay, we have get started at the top. That is, I think, a link to our Slack. At least it definitely should be. But like, I think those are the two main places, and the site, this page stops there. That's a brief tour through it. I'm not going to defend it as a great website, but I think it doesn't do a terrible job of describing what we are.
Awesome. I'm going to have you go scroll back up into the main hero section. So the first thing I'm immediately going to say is I actually do think a lot of the graphics you have, the design you have is actually pretty good. It does kind of explain what you do. There's definitely some things I'm kind of picking up on that you might want to kind of consider changing, but overall the design is super clean. You have strong call to actions given there's an open source component, and you can kind of rely on your larger Pydantic brand that a lot of developers already know and use and trust. Super strong, no notes there. Normally, I would grill on a lot of clarity jams that I've done, and also just even in this client work, I'd grill people on being like, "Oh, having visit docs be a CTA as kind of a secondary CTA." But in your case, and given what I know of how to market a developer tool, I know for a fact that the help docs or the API docs tend to be where a lot of conversions happen. So I'd almost encourage you, even just on this landing page, to lean into that even more, have more code available, have more graphics that or interactive graphics that really showcase what the Logfire actually does will actually help you convert even higher. But I feel like the immediate thing that's kind of standing out to me is logs, traces, and metrics from logo to production tells you what it is. It's actually a decent statement. I would argue that one of the things that's missing from this hero section in particular is that whole point that you said before about observability and how that's kind of not just an AI thing, but is this going to be standard? What have you thought about leaning into that even more within your H1 and within kind of that main hero section?
Yeah, I think we should change it. I think we should have making it up. I mean, I think we play hard on this AI. It's still just engineering. One option would be quoting a friend of mine and an AI influencer, Jason Liu, and being like, good AI observability is just good observability would be a good way of covering both that we're AI and that we're not. Obviously, doubling the word observability, which is fairly long, is a little bit unfortunate, but like something like that might get the point across. The other thing I would say about call to action, more and more of our sales are to enterprise. And what they actually want is a link to get a call. And so a bit of me thinks we should, I don't know whether you have an opinion on whether that should be an email, even a phone number or a Calendly link. Like how quickly can you basically get on a call with us and start talking about what it's like to adopt an enterprise?
Yeah, that's super interesting. In that case, get rid of visit docs within your main hero section, still link to it, but have that be kind of midway through your page. So you're kind of telling a story and then having it be get started for the people who are bottom up, and then have the second one be book a call and then to have that link directly to Calendly.
And you think having 3 call to actions there would be too many?
I would say 3 call to actions directly in your hero section is way too many. However, 2, totally fine when you have a split sales cycle. And in fact, something I've said across probably dozens of Clarity Jams, both private and then as well as a couple of ones that are paid, is 2 makes a ton of sense when you have something like what you have, where it's a bottom up where people want to try it out, or in some cases, if they're just doing kind of a free trial, and it's kind of split between that and paid demo.
Yeah. Do we just scroll on down? Do you want to talk about this section or?
Yes. So I would say one of the laziest words, not only in this section, but the one right below it, where it's like a more intuitive way. In my experience, intuitive is one of those words along with AI powered or seamless that don't tell you anything. So can you strip that out and just explain what is the thing that is okay? A more intuitive way to understand your LLM. What does that actually mean? And also, what is kind of that end goal?
Yes. So, I mean, I think what we mean by more intuitive is that the tracing view that you see here or above is easier to use, gets you to an answer more quickly than other solutions do. The other bit which plays into that is that because we're not just AI observability, you have like the call to, in this case, OpenAI, and you have your SQL queries, and they're all on the same pane of glass, and that's super valuable. That is, I suppose, what we're referring to by intuitive.
Got it. So I would, what you just said there, I would find a more eloquent way of saying that instead of what you have right now. And then the other piece of this, and I'd even tell you to go this up further, which is, what does that mean for the engineer or the developer? What does it actually empower them? Like, what are they thinking once they've done that in Logfire?
So we had as one of our other optional taglines, like no more, build faster, which people thought was a bit too vague, but it does kind of cover those things, right? If you understand it more quickly, you can fix it faster, you can get to production more quickly, et cetera, et cetera.
That's interesting, but I would almost challenge that a little bit, which is, what is a actual engineer saying once they've actually done the thing?
I mean, I don't know. I get feedback the whole time, and when it's positive, that's one of the problems. Is like often positive feedback is vague and negative feedback is specific. So positive feedback is, I love Logfire, it's awesome, it's really intuitive, and that's very nice to hear. But it doesn't tell us like this is the thing that we should drill in on and say what's good. Where people are annoyed, they're like, this thing is broken, that's really annoying.
When was the last time you did a case study interview or just had a conversation with a customer who was not just annoyed?
I mean, I had interactions with people yesterday on Twitter who were saying nice things, but I didn't drill into them and say what's good. I had sales calls this morning where people, liked Logfire and are working out how to run it in their enterprise. But that's a sales call, so I can't spend the time being like, tell us what you liked about it.
Yeah. Could you, from some of those interactions where they're positive and they're giving you positive feedback or they're giving you a testimonial, could you get onto and be like, hey, can we get onto a 15-minute call and then just ask those questions? It almost feels to me like you're missing like the one layer deeper where it's like you have all of the positive feedback, but it's like, could you ask one follow-up question right after? It's like, ooh, cool. Tell me how did that make you feel? Or what was that one thing that it unlocked for you? Most people are going to tell you that, but you almost have to just dive in and ask that one additional follow-up question.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think the other complexity or odd characteristic of building developer tools is that I and our entire team are both building it and are users. So everyone who is using it has an opinion on how it should be used. A bit like chefs all taste the food, but if you're a software team building a medical application, you don't have a clue what's useful and what's not. You have to go ask a doctor. That obviously has lots of advantages. The feedback loop for many things is much faster, but the downside is what we think is good about it and what other people think are good about it get blurred. And I can tell you why I think it is intuitive, or my guess, but I don't even remember fully to what extent that is what I've heard from customers, what I hope it is the truth, or what I find.
Yeah, I'd almost say that's almost more of a blessing and more of an advantage than a disadvantage. I mean, hey, if you're solving it for yourself, I mean, I do the exact same thing all the time as well. You have a more opinionated point of view that you can kind of lean into, but then also means that people probably are more passionate users of your tool, and they're probably going to be way more likely to get onto a 10, even though it's definitely can be, extra time. They're going to be more likely to get onto a 10-minute call and tell you exactly what they say. And then at that point, it's just about, okay, we have now 10 use cases. Which are the ones that we think just gut instinct are actually converting at the highest level? And then that's what you lean into on this landing page.
Yeah. I mean, I think the simple answer is, and again, this panel doesn't do it particularly well, but like literally understanding what the requests being made to the LLM are, being able to read the exchange and work out, and having this, I'm going to use the word, I'm sorry, but intuitive, or a view of how your application is executed, which matches your mental intuition about what's happening, is very valuable to people when they're trying to understand why things are not behaving the way they would expect.
Yeah. What you said there is, I would maybe wordsmith that a little bit, but also that's kind of what I would lean into, because that actually explains what it does, and or not only what it does, but also kind of the end result of that. Can you scroll to the next section? And we can also get into the semantics of all of this. However, for something like this, I would almost just challenge and be like, okay, what is kind of taking it a step further, which is explain what it is, but not only explain what it is and what it does, but also kind of what that empowers to the senior IC and why they should care about that. Keep scrolling to where you have the testimonials.
Yeah.
I like all these testimonials. I would say this works really well as it is, but I would challenge you and say, from my own experience across how landing pages tend to convert fast, is you have kind of that wedge, which in your case is observability, that sort of piece in there, and kind of why you're a little bit different in that. Then you have what I would call kind of your wow moments, where it's like, I didn't even know that Logfire did that. You did that really well already. I would just say clean that up a little bit more in terms of the language you're using. The one piece that I think is glaringly missing is kind of the proof piece, which is, I like all of this here. Can you add in some sort of proof a little bit higher up? Ideally where you have the wedge in there, so that someone who is particularly in the enterprise piece of it, so not just necessarily the bottom up people who are going to be way more willing and want to try it out, but for the enterprise folks, is there a way to take one or two of these testimonials or take one or two of those case studies that you have in the work that just instantly drill into kind of one of those core use cases so they get it right off of the bat?
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool. And then scroll down. Awesome. And then you have what you start building. I would maybe challenge you to workshop that CTA as well, so that it actually further mirrors into kind of your wedge around observability.
Totally.
And also add a CTA as well. Again, reinforce the same CTAs, which is get started, and then also book a call. Have both of those CTAs be there. And then I would maybe even say, and then you can still keep your same logos and just,
Yep. I totally agree.
Awesome. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that was super useful. As I said at the beginning, I know there's already a bunch of stuff wrong with our site. It's in need of love, but like, yeah, super helpful feedback. Thank you.